thanks for clicking on Behind the Buzz, a Public Fit Theater Company's bi-weekly podcast examining the myriad details that made up the production of some of our most popular past shows. I'm Joe Kucan, producing director here at APF, joined by artistic director Anne-Marie Pereth.
Hi there!
Hello, and together we'll be talking about the work that went into bringing these plays to life. This is episode 7, the final episode of this, our inaugural season, and today we'll be extending the conversation about our 2019 production of Small Mouth Sounds. We're thrilled to be joined today by Brad Heberlee, an actor from the original New York production of the play, and by the show's playwright, Bess Wohl. So let me get the official introductions out of the way because I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Brad Heberlee is a Las Vegas native and Anne-Marie's oldest, closest, and dearest friend. He received his BA in theater from UC Santa Barbara and did his MFA studies at Yale School of Drama. In fact, it was at Yale where he met Bess Wohl. A native of Brooklyn, Bess Wohl majored in English at Harvard College. While studying acting at the Yale School of Drama, Bess created the play Cats Talk Back, which went on to the New York International Fringe Festival, eventually winning the award for Best Overall Production, and led to her starting off point as a playwright. Small Mouth Sounds premiered off-Broadway at Ars Nova in 2015 to huge critical acclaim. The play was revamped in 2016 at the off-Broadway venue Signature Theater and had a U.S. national tour in 2017. That very year, Wohl won the Outer Critics Circle John Gassner Award, presented for an American play, preferably by a new playwright, for Small Mouth Sounds. Other plays include Pretty Filthy, Barcelona, In, Make Believe, and she recently made her Broadway debut in 2019 with the play Grand Horizons, for which she has recently received a Tony nomination. Hey guys, thanks for joining us.
Did we get that right?
Yeah, did I get it right? Was that accurate?
So did we mess up?
It doesn't matter. It's fine.
Do you consider
I might have received a BFA, not a BA, but that's okay.
All right, good. Well, I'm glad we clarified that.
I'm glad we got this. Do you consider yourself Anne-Marie's oldest and dearest friend?
Sure, yeah, why not?
Well, that's one of the things.
I think that's actually factual because I think we met when maybe we were 4 years old or 5 years old.
Yes, I have a huge memory of that.
Yeah.
So, yes, my first memory of Brad, his hair was a little redder when he was younger, and he popped his head over the fence, and he said, "Hi, I'm Brad. Do you want to play on my swing set?" And I was like, "Sure." And so that's how our friendship started. And I was in a private, I was going to a Montessori school, and because I wanted to be with Brad so much, I begged my mother to put me in public school so that we could be in the second grade together.
Well, and it's funny, Brad, you've said that sort of your childhood friendship with Anne-Marie is sort of similar to your adult friendship with Bess. How did that come about?
I'm flattered. I'm very flattered. I know. I'm feeling like I'll fight you for Brad, Anne-Marie.
Oh, no. Can we share?
The truth is, I think you could take her, Bess. I think you could.
He's not like a wishbone, like, do I get the bigger piece or,
We'll share. We'll share him.
There may not have been a fence involved, but do you remember meeting Brad at Yale, Bess?
I remember because I met Brad before Yale started because Brad and I were at the same audition session for the acting class at Yale. And I knew right then that I was in love with him. And we sang, we had to do our monologues we did our monologues for each other because I remember your monologue.
Yeah, we were in like a very little small callback together at the end of this day. And we had to be prepared to work on one of our pieces. And so we were working in front of each other. But go ahead.
Yeah. And then we had to sing a song. And I'm not a singer at all. And I sang like a James Taylor song or a Cat Stevens song or something.
Yeah, right.
And
like all 5 verses of it.
and I sat back down next to Brad, who I didn't know at all and had never had a conversation with. And I just remember he just like patted me on the knee. Like, that's okay. That's okay. You can't sing.
I have no recollection of that.
We're just like, that didn't go well, but it's going to be okay.
I was probably like encouraging you. I was like, we're all in this together.
No,
they used to call me
Rain.
They used to call me like, Rainbow Bright.
Yeah,
Rainbow Bright. Well, it probably helped that you probably, and I'm making some assumptions, probably weren't up for the same role during this audition process.
No, well, we were just trying to get into the acting company of the school. So yeah, we were just all like in it together. But I don't think anyone else, like to admit, first year students into the school, they had these little sessions where everyone would come and do their monologues. And, we didn't know that either of us would get in, and then we didn't talk again until the first day, right? And it was like, oh yeah, I remember you. We were in a callback together, and you patted me after I sang.
Bess, was this before you had started? Was this before you had started writing?
Yeah, it was. It was before I started writing. I was really like, I had an inkling that I might want to write at some point, but I didn't really think of myself that way. And then it wasn't until my second year in grad school that I started writing little plays, including Cat Stuck Back, which Brad stole the show of that, as with many of my other plays.
Emery saw that, actually. Emery was serendipitously in town.
I remember, I don't know why I was in New York City. I don't think I was living there yet, but I did see it, and I remember enjoying it thoroughly. And yes, Brad did steal the show. And I remember him doing a stag jump in the show. Yeah, I was like, oh, there's the dancer, Brad. Yeah, that's the part I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and a high kick, some high kicks.
Yes.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Can you still do them, Brad? We're on video. I mean, it won't go over the podcast, but can you do one now for us?
I can kick all the way to my waist. I have a good 40-degree kick. That's about it.
Well, this is it's these relationships. I wanted to bring up the relationships first because I have I've heard stories from in and around, mostly from Brad probably, that some of the work that you've been some of your writing, Bess, actually incorporates some of Brad's life and probably your own, and maybe in some peripheral ways, kind of Anne-Marie's. Is that not fair, Brad? You're shaking your head like I've just told the worst secret ever.
I mean, I think I know where you're going with this. I mean, I would already preemptively say, anyway, it's like I think writers, any artist taking inspiration from the world around you. So,
maybe you're not as aware. Am I on the wrong track here, Bess? Is that inappropriate?
No. I mean, I would definitely say there's a very small handful of people, 3, and Brad is one of them, who artistically inspire me on a consistent basis over years and years and years. And Brad, so I feel like Brad and we came up together through acting school. We became super close friends, and Brad's has inspired me both just him as a person, but also his taste, his aesthetic, his idea of what's interesting on stage and what's not. All of that is incredibly inspiring to me. So I'm always stealing from Brad in different ways. And I've written a few plays since then with parts for him. He was in obviously that first play that we did in grad school, but then he was in Small Mouth Sounds, and then he was in another play of mine, Make Believe, and then my Broadway play had certain elements of Brad on stage in one of the characters. So he's inspired me to the point where now if I write a play without a role for Brad in it, I'm a little depressed that Brad's not going to be in it. No, truly. No,
I understand. I really appreciate that answer, because now you've saved me from having to ask the question of where do your ideas come from, which is such an overused
Brad.
Trope. You always love that.
Come from Brad.
Just Brad.
Just Brad. That's it.
I love that idea. Where did the handle? I just want to ask this. This may not have anything to do with Brad. Sorry, Brad. We might not talk about you for just a couple seconds. I've heard your plays described, your work sort of in toto described as impossible plays. Is that where did that term come from? Is that a term you embrace?
Yeah. I guess I do embrace it. I mean, I think it comes from the fact that I'm often interested in trying to put stuff on stage that I haven't seen before, or that seems really difficult or challenging. I'm interested in what I can do that seems like a terrible idea that will never work, and then seeing if I can rise to that challenge. So definitely there's something in that sort of idea of what's impossible on stage that's really interesting to me. And I think that's part of where Small Mouth Sounds came from.
Can you list some of, that's just a fascinating idea to me, the idea of having a list of things that seem to be impossible on stage, and having seen Miss Saigon where they landed a helicopter, does that make the list? What is the graduated list of things that fascinate you in terms of potentially being impossible on stage?
Right. Well, definitely with Small Mouth Sounds, I was trying to push the envelope of how much silence could I put on stage and still tell a story that people could follow, especially since people talk about theater as being so dialogue driven. And I was interested in the ways in which it's not dialogue driven. It's like behavior driven and emotion driven. And how else could we tell a story? With Make Believe, another play that Brad was in, I was interested in putting children on stage and seeing how much of a story children could tell. And then with Grand Horizons, I did crash a truck through a wall on stage. So there was a little Miss Saigon in there. But I was also interested in...
See, I felt more Sam Shepard than Miss Saigon. I felt like it was the Fool for Love moment in the truck moment in Fool for Love than
totally.
Miss Saigon.
Totally. No, I was trying to like push the envelope in terms of design. But with that, I was also interested in doing like a true sort of comedy that felt like a throwback in a way, and was sort of something that wasn't like the fashion right now, and seeing it, what it meant to just like fly in the face of sort of the theatrical conventions of right now by putting like a big fun comedy on stage in a way that not a lot of people are doing. So that was another like challenge that was interesting to me for that one. So yeah, I'm always trying to do it. And I don't like set out to think like what's a really hard thing to do. I just end up being attracted to things that seem difficult. I don't know why, but honestly, I think all of theater is really difficult. Like I think every play is kind of impossible. So I don't think I'm really doing anything that different than what we're all doing when we make a play. It's like always kind of a magic trick if you pull it off. So, I feel like, I'm just like part of what everyone's doing, which is trying to make people believe in things that aren't real.
Specifically, they're talking about Small Mouth Sounds, getting back to the play that we have a bit of a hands-on experience with. Anne-Marie had some trepidation, I guess is the best word, as we started the rehearsal process for that. You were anxious.
Yeah, I had friends who had approached me previously about what I was going to put in the season, and I had gone to see the signature production, and I loved it, and I wanted to know if it was like an inside joke, if it was an ensemble piece that Brad was part of, and was it replicable? And I thought, well, no, this seems replicable. I read the play, but then I decided not to put it in the season because it scared the shit out of me.
Well, specifically what? What scared you?
Well, the silence and crafting the silence and not have like bad actor indicating where there's like all of these gestures on stage that are not believable. That was a thing that was troubling to me. I didn't know if Las Vegas audiences would be interested in such a thing. That was a concern of mine. But there were two people in the theater community who were very attracted to the play, and out in the backyard around a fire, they convinced me, and so I took the plunge. So,
is that a concern? Wow. Do you see elements of this play that run the risk of stumbling into pantomime or indication or what have you? Brad, you're nodding your head. Are you being more intimately involved? Maybe that's a question for you.
Well, no, I mean, I think 100%. I mean, that is a tricky thing to navigate, being inside of the play as an actor. And of course, the director's there to orchestrate that and give you feedback. But yeah, you kind of question what is, you have to trust that your thought process and what you're trying to achieve is being read, and that is enough. When you get to the part where I should be showing this more, that's when you get into trouble. And so what was lucky about our original production is that we were in a very, very intimate space. I mean, it was like the size of a large living room in somebody's home. So luckily we could trust that, yeah, that would work. What was challenging is that when it transferred to a larger space, maybe almost 3 times the size of our initial space, was how much do we amplify what we're doing so that it is legible to an audience? And that's hard to do. It's hard to do as an actor. To read that kind of room, you really have to trust the feedback that's coming from the audience and coming from your director and obviously your playwright, and saying like, and just trusting that it's enough, and it is enough.
I wanted to, this is probably not a question that you can answer, Brad, but I'm sure you were in rehearsal, Bess. Did you find that all the actors were sometimes in different plays in terms of gesture in early on in the rehearsal process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that always kind of comes up in rehearsal, whether the play's silent or not. Like, how do we all make sure that we're like performing in the same language and at the same level? And definitely with this one, I think it did. But it really, we kept coming back to this idea that Brad is articulating, which is, just have the experience and let the audience come to you. Don't like push it out to the audience. To me, so much of the play was about like teaching the audience how to watch very closely from the beginning. I don't know if you had this experience while you were directing it, but it's like you have to really teach them how to come to the play. And if you can do that in the first few minutes, then they'll pick up on all of the small nuances, and they won't expect to be sort of like fed the play. And, to me, so much of it was like getting people to sit up and pay attention, which is kind of also what the play's about. Like, can you be alive to the world around you? Can you pay attention? Can you wake up? Like, I think that there's part of that we were trying to do to the audience in the way we performed it.
Wow, that is a note I would have loved to have had in rehearsal, because that was like something I was teetering with. What I had to do with some of my actors was I had to take certain gestures off the table, because we had some very, very experienced actors. Some of them were like cirque performers, and they could be a little more amplified. And then we had other actors who had certain like repeatable gestures that had nothing to do with what was happening. It was just coming out of nervousness. I had to take those gestures off the table in order so that they would just kind of be more grounded in connecting and telling that story, and really paying close attention to your stage directions, which I think are actually really well written and very clear. And that was another thing that I was afraid of, too, when I was working on it. I was like, well, how far beyond these stage directions do I go? Like, where are the boundaries? And if I go too far beyond the stage directions, then does it just become like an inside story that the actors that we've created that has nothing to do with the story that you've created? Which was also a concern of mine. But even when you have verbal text, right, actors put their own spin on the play in order to make it their own unique experience. So those were some of the things that I was trying to balance. And it was a very scary process for me. To be quite honest, I was directing this by myself. Sometimes Joe and I co-direct, but I was coming home a lot and crying, going, I don't know if I know what I'm doing.
Oh no.
It was scary. And then, Joe came in later on in the process, and like he always does, we look at each other's work, and, we just kept refining and refining and refining until we got to opening night. And by the time we got into production, I was very, very proud of it. And I was very proud of the team and the design and all of the things that were involved. But just like when you're working on any show, it is that experience that you have to go to where you're kind of standing, out there at the edge of the cliff and going, is this going to work? I'm kind of free falling here.
But Anne-Marie, that is very much the story of the play.
Yes.
Your experience mirrors the literal journey of every character in the play. Everybody's walking, in the dark in the woods, and finally arrives, at this moment of
Imagining bears.
I think I would rather be not Ned because he has a shitstorm of a story.
Well, that's something we could say too. I don't know if I pointed this out. Is that Brad? You played Ned in the production. Ned is the character who has had a horrible rock climbing accident and actually has a 3-page monologue in the middle of this very quiet play. A monologue that was under some scrutiny. Bess, didn't you have a couple of shows where you actually cut the monologue?
Not during a performance. We did one rehearsal run where we tried lifting it out because I wasn't sure. I just kept. I was trying to understand like how to go that far into speech and then come back out of it, and just making sure that I wasn't like disrupting the energy of the play too much. But so we tried it once without the monologue, and then everybody yelled at me for even wanting to try that, and the monologue went back in.
It was like, it was such a dark, sad day.
It was an awful day.
It was an awful day. But what I do remember you saying is like, because, you know, Bess was, the play was still growing and developing through our rehearsal process. And I remember you saying like, it helped you look at the scene following that question and answer scene. And you wound up kind of tweaking and rewriting I don't know, it was a scene where I can't remember what the scene, but we're like on yoga mats with the teacher the next day. I don't know what scene that is.
Isn't that the scene with Judy gets, the note gets revealed?
That's right. Yeah. And Alicia has a breakdown.
And his cell phone. It's his cell phone moment. It's the teacher's cell phone moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. And I remember you reworked that, and I don't know, it was in response to taking the question and answer out that one day that you could see that scene clearer. That's my memory anyway.
Yeah, because my experience had been like, because I wasn't sure about the Ned monologue during the subsequent scene, every time the scene came up right after the Ned monologue, I spent the first like 5 minutes of it wondering about whether I should cut the Ned monologue. So I wasn't like really watching it ever. So once I tried cutting I had to resolve the Ned monologue, and then I could like see the next thing, you know. I tend to get obsessive about certain chunks of plays, and sometimes so much that I'm like not looking at the rest of it. So.
Well, I was curious about that story because of all the themes in the play, the themes of loneliness and striving to better yourself and being unhappy, and is it possible to make yourself happy, and all of those themes, the Ned monologue, as it's come to be called, just strikes me as really laying the foundation for the theme of climate change and the notion of sort of global, the sense that some of us carry with us day to day of global doom, which I think is a pretty heavy foundational concept in the play.
And there are hardly any plays about climate change.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I know I did. I wrote another play about climate change right after this. So climate change was like very much on my mind, and definitely it sort of snuck its way into this play. You know, I didn't intend for it to be such a big part of this play, but I think also because the natural world is such a part of their environment, whether it's like the lake or the woods that they're in and the sounds of that natural world. The idea of like humans in nature and how we interact feels very present in the play throughout.
There's a person in our community who I respect quite a bit. His name is Daz Weller. He's another artistic director, and he was so impressed with that section of the play, and he commented to me after the show about how you found a way to get the idea of climate change in there, and so bravo.
Thank you. I wish I could take credit for it, but somebody at a retreat that I went to got up and asked a similar question to that, and it's like spiraled through the person's life and ended up into climate change, and it just felt so arresting to me to see that, and so that was I can't take full credit because it happened in life.
This is one of the three people that inspires you in your work?
No, it wasn't Brad. It wasn't Brad, but it could have been. It was Brad's alter ego somewhere. Brad's doppelganger.
love talking about theater and all of the analysis that has to be a part of any artistic expression. We're planning on continuing with further seasons of Behind the Buzz, but we need your input, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Is there a production you want to talk about, a reading that you think demands a deeper dive? Drop us an email at behindthebuzz@apublicfit.org. Is there a particular show you'd like to hear discussed? Is there an element of production that you've always been curious about? Is there a question you always wanted to ask Anne-Marie?
Oh, yes.
Well, here's your chance. Is there a chance you want to say hello to Enzo? Well, here's your chance. So stay tuned for further episodes or hit the subscribe button to be sure of being updated with all of our current content. Yeah, I wrote down on my list of notes here, I wrote down just a quick question to myself: who's the protagonist of the play? And then I immediately thought to myself, well, is that an antiquated question anymore? Do we need protagonists per se to tell the stories that we want to tell? What do you think of that as a playwright? Do you consider the idea that maybe we don't always need a single protagonist to drive a story along?
I think it's an interesting question. I think this play really is an ensemble play. So I don't see it as one protagonist. And I tried very hard to balance the characters so that no one felt like they were running away with the story. And so I think it just depends on the way the play is structured. I think you can have one protagonist still. I don't think it's antiquated, but I think, to me, what was interesting in this was creating a real ensemble where everyone has their moment of crisis. Everyone has their moment of revelation. Everyone has their reason for being there, even if it's not fully articulated, and to sort of balance it without making it feel too expected in terms of how things were balanced. Like I had written one draft of this where everybody got their question, and it wasn't just Ned getting his question. And that felt kind of like annoying to me, because then I'm suddenly like waiting to hear everybody ask their question. And I'm, as an audience member, like ticking off in my mind, how many people have spoken and, how many do I have left to go?
It's like look at the songs list during Pirates of Penzance. Right, it's like, exactly. What is Pirates of Penzance? Oh, no, they have to sing another general song.
Exactly. We've all been there. So I wanted to sort of create a feeling of balance without sort of making everyone go through the same motions in a way that would start to feel predictable, I guess.
So Brad, so when the show was out did a national tour, you actually had to step into a role in another city, right? In Philadelphia or somewhere, yeah?
Yeah, it was amazing.
What was that process like?
It was really cool. It was like, I'd never done anything like that. I worked as an understudy before, which is kind of, which is its own, experience and can of worms. But because it was a play that I had done with another group of people, like a year prior, I had this whole other experience in life still kind of like, in my body. So walking into a cast where I only had 2 days of rehearsal and, one put in on stage, it was fascinating because I had to be alive to what they were offering and serving up in the moment, which was so different. Well, it wasn't so different, but it just had different little peaks and valleys than what we had found as an ensemble, in the original production. Of course, that's a given. So it was kind of challenging and fun. And, it kept me on my toes, but I love that because, like, as an actor, one of the things at least I've arrived at or I'm most interested in is like, what is actually happening on stage? Like that a moment is alive, that we're not showing something that we've rehearsed. We've rehearsed so that we can be alive in the moment and present to what's actually happening. And so that experience kind of, illuminated that for me because I had to be present to what they were giving me. I couldn't rely on old patterns and rhythms that were established in the other production, and nor would I want to. But that made it really fun.
And they had you playing Alicia too, which I thought was a strange.
Yeah. And you know what? I was sexy. I was sexy. I really brought.
God, thanks for going with that. That's good. So I want to ask you, Bess. So actors have done this. What's his name? Anglim. Philip Anglim made a pretty good career just going in around the country doing Elephant Mans around the world after his Broadway debut of Elephant Man. So production after production after production. But playwrights don't often come back to their work. It's done. Other productions are, produced around the world, but they don't always go back in and tinker with them. Did they bring you back to when you revamped for the signature production? Were you involved in that transition?
Yeah, I was. And, that really was a transfer. We were trying to sort of keep the magic that we had found in our first production. So there wasn't a lot of sort of deep rethinking of what the show was. In fact, a lot of the conversation was, how do we preserve this feeling that we had in a larger space? But the one thing that I did update a little bit was actually Ned's monologue, because the world had moved forward and climate change had become more dire, unfortunately, and the challenges that we're facing as a society had become more extreme in the year since we had done the show the first time. So I felt like to keep it current, I had to kind of incorporate those changes in the world. And I wanted that to feel really contemporary.
It's all about Brad. It always comes back to Brad and his monologue.
Oh my God, I know.
We had in our production, we laid a pretty heavy hand on what we sort of considered this meta moment, where the teacher gives his "You are not alone" speech, and in our production, it seemed like there was not. I mean, we staged it in a tennis court setting, much as the original production did.
Mm-hmm. But we brought the house lights up, and it was one of my favorite moments in our production, because when the audience is facing each other and then the teacher's giving this particular mantra, right? It encouraged people who felt comfortable with that to kind of accept that idea. And I could see who felt comfortable with it, and I could see who didn't. It was like, it was like a psychological study to see who was really embracing that, because Joe and I, we watch every one of our productions just because, we have to be the producers and the usher, and I also have to clean the bathroom and do all of these things in my theater. So, but that was one of my favorite moments in the show, just because of that interchange between the audience and the story itself.
Well, and that was the reason I brought it up, was because it wasn't in tennis court. And when we brought the lights up, the audience was forced to literally look across the stage at themselves and hear this speech about, you are not alone, you are not alone. And I brought it up, Bess, because I wondered if you got any feedback from audiences about the very nature of self-help seminars and silent retreats and what have you. And from either side, because I think, from my perspective, there's a real danger in, especially with the way the teacher can be presented, in mocking that process, as opposed to accepting it as a very valuable process to go through. So I wonder what your perspective was on that, and if you got any feedback from audiences on either side of that spectrum.
Yeah, well, that's one of my favorite moments in the play too. I do think it's kind of the moment where the audience become part of the retreat, and it kind of creeps up on you. And interestingly, that moment evolved because I didn't expect that moment, but the way the theater was set up at Ars Nova, where we first did the show, it took the actors a very long time to cross over from one side of the stage to the other. They had to go downstairs through the basement and walk back up. So we were trying to get them to cross over and re-enter, and they couldn't get there in time. So there was this moment when the stage was bare and the teacher was speaking and nobody was there, and it was just the audience. And, everyone was like, this is terrible. We've got to solve this. And what we came to was no, this is actually an incredibly powerful moment where the audience becomes part of the retreat. And I was like running to the director, like, I love it, leave it. Like, this is the play, you know? So there's really exciting discovery that didn't happen until tech. And, you know, I think you're exactly right. Like, the play walks this line of, are we satirizing this or are we taking it seriously? And I, as a playwright, I'm always kind of like trying to have my cake and eat it too. You know, I think of it as like a sort of compassionate satire, you know, that it's having fun with a situation that has inherent humor, but it's not mocking these people. You know, that's like the line that I'm trying to walk all the time. And I think it's very important that even though the teacher is slightly ridiculous at moments, that the teachings of the teacher are also taken seriously at moments and do feel like they have real worth, and that we are invested in him or her or them, whoever the teacher may be. Because if we don't buy anything the teacher's saying, it's like impossible to get on the journey with the characters. So I think that that's a really important piece of doing this play. And the most sort of fulfilling thing for me in terms of the audience was when people who were from the meditation community, the spiritual community, people who really knew that world intimately came and felt seen by the play and loved the play. And one of the sort of most famous meditation teachers in the world is this woman named Sharon Salzberg, who came to the play a bunch of times and did a talk back afterwards and said to me after she saw the play, like, this is the play that I would have written if I could write a play about my experience as a meditation teacher. And then we became great friends, actually, after the play closed. So that was really nice.
Love that.
Yeah, that's, you brought up talkbacks. As a playwright, what are your feelings about talkbacks? I know that some of your peers, do we call? Oh,
you mean David
Don't
Mamet?
call David Mamet a peer. Oh my gosh. Please no.
I said it.
Some of the folks who are in your particular line of work don't care for callbacks. In fact, or talkbacks, callbacks. Don't care for talkbacks, and in fact, will ban them from their productions. I just have to tell you, you may not be aware, but Public Fit, we do something called the Buzz, and our Buzz is a talkback after every performance, not just on the Sunday matinees. We do it at opening night, we do it at closing night, we do it at every one of our performances, all of our readings and nearly everything we do, because we really believe that the conversation between the audience and the actors is not just relegated to the confines of the play itself. I've put that thought in your mind, but what do you have an opinion about talkbacks as a general rule? How do you feel about them as a playwright?
They're very nerve-wracking as a playwright. Just, you know, I don't know that I have sort of a grand opinion about whether they should happen or not, but my experience of them is that I'm always terrified. And you sort of feel like you're going to be humiliated. And sometimes you are. But that's okay too when that happens. I mean, I feel like that, you know, we make this work and, you know, we get a certain amount of hopefully positive feedback about it. And then like the price of that is a certain amount of humiliation too. So
that is exactly how I feel. But we've been doing it for so long now. For the first couple of years, I was like, I hate this. And then Joe would throw out a question to me and I wouldn't know the answer and I would be mortified. But now I sit in this place now where it's an opportunity for us to really learn about what the audience thinks about the play. And something unique that we do is we never really focus in on like the acting choices.
Or the playwriting choices, really. I mean, we want to talk about the production, the play as written and as presented and how it lands on people as opposed to making any sort of qualitative criticisms. Yeah.
So
that's what I was going to say is like, for me, a talkback needs a fantastic moderator that understands, like, you know, that has a really certain, you know, purpose, you know, and with, you know, good questions and things like that. When it's just like, so, you know, and it's open-ended. Yeah. I mean, that's what's terrible about talkbacks. Other than that, if you can facilitate an interesting question about like the themes that I brought up or, you know, and not about like, what did you like? I like the set,
How'd you learn so many lines?
How did you learn all those lines? The reason I ask you specifically about that, Bess, though, is because your first play is literally a talkback. Is that not true?
Yes, that is true. You can tell my feelings about talkbacks from that play.
Well, can you describe Cat? We've mentioned at the top of this podcast about Cat's Talkback. Can you describe Cat's Talkback for our listeners who I'm sure have not seen it?
Yeah. Cat's Talkback was something I came up with in grad school when we were being subjected to many, many talkbacks. After every grad school performance, there was always talkback. And I was interested in actually the form of the talkback, the sense of like everybody trying to say something smart and the sort of performance of the way the performance of a play sort of continues into the talkback was interesting to me. So I wrote a play that was a talkback, a sort of fictional talkback after a performance of Cats, the musical. And the conceit of the play was that 5 people who had been in Cats were coming to talk actually to the Yale School of Drama, which is where we did the play, about their process and share, tales from Broadway and stuff about working with Andrew Lloyd Webber and sort of, create a bridge between the Yale Drama School and the Great White Way, as they said. And then, and we really promoted it like it was real. And actually, different like high schools in the New Haven area signed up to come, thinking it was real, for their students to learn about Broadway. So it kind of got out of control. And then we did it again in New York in the Fringe Festival and continued this like sort of mock talkback thing. And it was really fun. And then we had plants in the audience asking questions of the actors.
What sort of research did you do for such a project? Did you talk to any actors? I'm flabbergasted, actually, how many actors I know who have been in Cats. Out here in Las Vegas, we run into a Cirque performer now and again who, was a Mr. Mistopheles or somewhere.
Yeah.
What sort of research was involved?
Well, I actually did talk to a bunch of people who had been in Cats for long periods of time. You can dig up interviews too, with people who've been in Cats. So I read a bunch of interviews and looked at sort of what the experience had been. And then there was a costume design student at Yale who had been in Cats for a long time. And before he transitioned into being a costume designer. So I talked to him and just sort of did my research on. And then I knew the show very well because I was in a bootleg production of Cats at my church when I was about 12, where we made our cat costumes out of long underwear with yarn, or our moms made them for us, really. And so I kind of had the whole show at my fingertips from that experience. So I don't know, but I really didn't. I was much less. It's funny. The idea that came to me first was let's do a show that's a talkback. And then I thought, okay, well, what's a show where I don't need to explain the plot and everyone will kind of know it. Okay, let's just make it Cats. But, I had thought about, should it be Death of a Salesman? Should it be what should it be?
The Cats is perfect.
Cats was good. Yeah, no, we landed on the right thing, I think, at the end.
Oh, I think so too. God, it's just perfect. Well, it does seem that you have a bias against talkbacks, but that's okay, I guess.
It's good.
I think I will say, there have been moments in talkbacks that audience members have said things to me that have been so incredibly moving to me and have really stayed with me, in just absolutely beautiful ways. There was a talkback that we had after Make Believe, which was another show that Brad was in. And there was one audience member who just had clearly been so affected by the play, and the way he spoke about it was something that, I'll never forget. So I don't have total disdain for talkbacks. I think that they can just, be very beautiful moments of connection between the artists and the audience.
Well, I'll tell you, we take ours very seriously in having the conversation about the event, right? The sort of the effect of the show. And one of the reasons Emery and I see all the shows, I moderate those discussions. And without fail, at every buzz following Small Mouse Sounds, there were at least half a dozen people that had gone to some sort of self-help seminar, some sort of silent retreat, some sort of meditation getaway, or a yoga, extended yoga seminar, and really felt that that your play captured perfectly not just the experience, but the ludicrousness in concert with the sort of deep, honest, meaningful experience that they had, that those two extremes lived in that experience for them. So for me, who's never been to one, I was just surprised. I was surprised at how many people had gone through that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's a testament to your production too, because so much of the tone of the play lives in the production of like walking that line between profundity and ridiculousness.
I had a lot of help from Brad.
Yeah, I'm
calling,
sure.
"Oh my God, help."
What was the biggest question you had for Brad? Do you remember?
Well, I remember having a hard time with the cabin sequence. I think I spent like 30 hours on that sequence.
Wow. Is it night one when everybody's unpacking?
Oh my God. It was.
We did too. We spent so many, that is the most difficult sequence because there's so much storytelling happening. And there's also much, like what Bess said earlier, teaching the audience how to listen to the play and how to watch the play. And it's happening in that first night.
And Joe and I kind of pride ourselves at being really good at transitions, like I feel, directors, they move furniture and move bodies and things like that.
We have a strict no blackout policy.
Yeah. And I had a hard time with some of the transitions in the show. So I remember calling Brad about a couple of those things, but also just trusting in the simplicity of the storytelling was just something I had a hard time with. So it's funny, in the previous conversation that we had with Maggie Edson, we asked her about a particular moment. And I was like, oh my God, we missed we missed that moment. So that opening comment that you made earlier about getting the audience just to trust, that is something that I think would have given me some more peace of mind. And I felt like I finally got there, but it's not something that I consciously could talk about, in the rehearsal process. So
you need an audience too, to sort of help you take that step as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think an audience helps there. Mm-hmm. And we don't do a lot of previews.
No.
I'm sorry, Bess, I cut you off.
No. I think it's totally right. The audience sort of teaches you. I mean, with this play, we did workshops, and, I didn't know when we first started doing this play, like, are people going to be bored? Are they going to fall asleep? Are they going to walk out? Are they going to, no idea what the reaction would be. No idea. And it was through doing workshops and getting feedback, like, you should keep going with this. This is interesting. People are sitting up and paying attention. That I was like, okay, but I didn't know. I empathize with what you're saying about that sense of terror, because that is what I had going into it. Like, this is going to be just like the most boring thing. And, no one's going to want to watch this. And, I think I learned in a way that sometimes the less you give an audience, the more interested they are, that you kind of hold back things from them, and it makes them sit up and want more, as opposed to sort of shoving a lot of things in their face. And that was a big lesson for me.
I teach that to my students all the time. Mystery.
Yeah.
But then I don't necessarily, I'm like, am I creating mystery in my own shows? So
do you like, I'm going to change just gears
absolutely.
For a little bit. You mentioned the workshopping process, Bess. Do you enjoy that process? Is it, it's certainly it's worthwhile because it makes a piece grow, but is it fun to take those notes and to get that feedback and to maybe, what's the cliche, murder your darlings and lose some of your favorite moments in a play? Do you enjoy that process?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love murdering my darlings, that part of it. Although I am a person who loves to cut things, as you can tell from the story about cutting Brad's monologue. So I'm normally like the one out there with the axe trying to murder everything myself, and other people have to kind of like stop me from doing it. So I do. It's been interesting actually during COVID because, you know, I'm writing plays, but the workshop piece of it is gone, you know, since we can't gather, and workshopping on Zoom is so different. So I'm having this experience of writing drafts of plays without having workshopped them. I'm just sort of like in my own, you know, bubble of working on things without feedback from actors or without seeing it on its feet. And I don't know what, you know, it's just a very different process for me, and I don't know how it'll go or what it'll lead to. Yeah.
That's funny, because I was going to ask you about, because you do some writing for television, and I imagine a screenplay or two hidden there somewhere. And you certainly don't workshop TV episodes.
Right.
The process of writing for TV comes without workshopping, but now you're having to do that for theater. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the structure and the process of writing for theater, for plays, or do you like the small screen writing more?
I really like writing for plays. I really do. I have to say, I love like the flexibility of the theater. It's funny, you would think like TV and film would offer you more flexibility because of editing and all the different locations you can have. But I just find
smashing a truck through a wall.
Right. That's no big deal on film. But I just really, I love the I don't know, the fluidity of theater. I love being in a room with people, and I love that process, and I miss it a lot. There's no contest for me.
Are we going to get back to it? What's the future hold for theater? Do we have any idea? What are they saying out there in New York, kids? What's the future of theater like?
I don't know. They keep giving us dates that everything will come back by, and then they keep sort of pushing the dates and pushing the dates and pushing the dates. You know, and I have things in the works where they've said, like, we may start rehearsals in April, we may start rehearsals in July. You know, like they give you several sets of dates. And, you know, everyone's just doing the best they can and hoping that things come back. But I really don't think anybody knows how we'll come back or what the appetite will be for audiences. You know, are people going to be comfortable gathering, and what will make them comfortable gathering again? And I don't know. I think it's just a huge question mark still.
But you've been able to write. You've kept yourself busy.
Yeah, I have. I sort of feel like the theater community is uniquely suited to weather this because we have so much uncertainty in our lives anyway, you know, and we're so used to things coming together and falling apart that it's like, oh, that didn't work out. Okay. Like, you know, we're sort of like more battle scarred, I think, in terms of just not knowing what's going to happen next. I feel kind of comfortable not knowing what's going to happen next in a way that I think, you know, if you've had a more sort of like traditional career trajectory, you might not. But yeah, I'm still writing plays. I really believe that theater's coming back, and I think people are going to be really excited to gather again. And I think it's going to be really meaningful to people when it happens. So
I agree. I think those first few performances are going to be remarkable just for their sense of reunion. What about you, Brad? You're obviously not working. There's no acting jobs.
No, not working, Joe.
Yeah, I don't mean to throw you under the unemployment bus, but because you are a working actor. You are a working New York actor. What are you doing? A successful working New York actor.
That's right.
In
every play Bess Wohl's ever written, I understand.
No.
How are you spending your time these days?
Well, Joe, you know, it's funny you should ask.
You're trying to be funny, Brad.
No, Brad's funny.
Oh, he is.
Yes.
No, but I think part of me, like what Bess was talking about, like, you know, being in a room with people and being that kind of engagement. It's like, I still have that need, but of course I don't know where to put it. And so I've been taking courses at a college and trying to stay engaged, like, you know, with my mind and my body in a new way. And so I'm just like trying to learn and continue to challenge myself and, you know, use my time that I have, but still feel like I'm, you know, growing and learning and working towards something, even though I don't have a solid idea of exactly where I'm headed, but I don't think it really matters. I don't think I have to answer that question. I think it's been beneficial. And what I do know is that I'm happy I'm doing that right now. So
you guys are so noble. I've been napping and eating frozen burritos. So
I've done that too.
Yeah, we're doing that too.
I've been exercising.
Yes.
I'm exercising.
Anne-Marie exercises nonstop. Well, I think I've taken up enough of your time with all this. Thank you so much for doing this, for having the conversation with us. We loved Small Mouth Sounds, not just the Ars Nova production, but our own work. And it's one of my favorite shows that we've done.
It's amongst our administrative staff, it's the favorite.
Oh, that's amazing.
Absolutely in the top 3.
Thank you. I'm so bummed that I didn't see it. I'm sure it was amazing.
Well, thanks again, really, for taking the time to have this conversation with us. And hopefully we could do something like this again. I'd love to chat with you more as we come back online and hear what other plays you have in the pipeline, Bess. I'm really curious to see what comes next, what the next impossible feat.
Yeah, we might put it in our season.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be great.
Cool.
And Brad, hopefully we'll see you soon, yeah?
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay.
I'll see you at APF.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
So that wraps up season 1 of Behind the Buzz, our continuing conversation from a Public Fit Theater company. This was episode 7. And I want to again thank Brad Heberlee and Bess Wohl for joining us today with their Small Mouth Sounds tales and their unique perspective on the state of the art. It was a complicated journey for us getting here to this last episode. The holidays, the pandemic, some personal issues, but we're so happy that you've joined our extended conversation. Special thanks, finally, to the staff of A Public Fit for their unwavering patience and support as we explore this brand new medium. Lisa Lynn Chapman, Brandy Blackman, David Adler, Tina Rice, Andrew Calvert, Gabby Giacomo, and Ace Daniels. We literally could do nothing without your continued dedication and love. Behind the Buzz is a product of A Public Fit Theater company in association with Giant Leap Industries. Adam Paul, director.